Welcome to Solutions with Courtney Anderson.
Hi, Courtney. This is Joanna. How are you?
Hi, Joanna. We are going to have such a great episode today, and I'm so excited for everybody to meet you. You are going to be co-hosting going forward, and this is a thrill for me to have you on board, and I think everybody's going to love learning from you. I want to tell you that today's episode is going to be one of the more popular ones. I want everybody to know that Joanna has worked with me for quite a while now and is, I have to say, one of the most brilliant, amazing, and beautiful people you're ever going to meet. So one of the things that I want our community members to know is that we really do. We really do practice exactly what we talk about. We walk the talk, we practice what we preach. And so often I think, people don't have that authenticity. And so I know that maybe today's a great day for me. I'm not sure that it is for you, Joanna, because you're already so busy with all the things that you do and we do for our clients and for our community members. But I've sort of corralled you into this. And I am just thrilled to have you join us here on the Solutions with Courtney Anderson show and be part of our radio broadcast. So I think people are going to be just ecstatic and going to learn a lot from you. So welcome, Joanna.
Well, thanks, Courtney, and it is a real pleasure to be a part of this, as everything that you get involved in. And it is a beautiful day today, inside and out, as far as I can see. So let's get to it. Let's talk about the topic that we are bringing up for today's show.
Absolutely, and as everybody is aware, of course, on our site, on the radio site, we've always got a list of our different episodes. But today's episode is it's from our Entrepreneur and Executive Series, and the title is, and our focus for today is how to keep your composure at work. How do you keep your composure at work? And we've sort of subtitled today's episode, also known as the No Crying Zone. It's the no crying zone. And Joanna, when we have our staff meetings and we're sort of going through the list of show topics and trying to decide what we're going to do next, we often have kind of heated debates trying to decide what to do. But this was an easy solution for us to all arrive at an agreement for a show because it's so popular, it's so common. And I understand, as you've gone through our community members who've come to CourtneyAnderson.com and given show ideas, and everybody knows that's where we get our ideas. All of our ideas come from people that we're trying to give solutions to, and so I think you've got a couple of them there that you thought, oh, this is perfect. This is somebody dealing with an issue about how to keep their composure at work. So I'm going to let you read off one, and let's see if we can get to some solutions and some assistance for our community members.
Absolutely. This one is from Alice in Des Moines, and she writes that she is the only woman in her department, and she is at a management level, and she wants to know how to keep her composure while still being a nice person. She says, I often want to scream out of frustration and was on the verge of tears after a tense meeting last week.
Wow. Yeah,
well, it's a fairly common tale, isn't it?
Oh, Joanna. I mean, in the course of our careers and our lives, how often does this come up, and how often have we given a seminar or a keynote event and someone has come up to talk to us afterwards and has brought up this issue. So, thank you, Alice, first of all, and I want to encourage everybody else, come to CourtneyAnderson.com. Please get involved. I mean, we're here to bring all of our expertise and experience to you, but we need to hear from you so that we can, give solutions that are immediately relevant to your life. So, Alice, let's think about this. First of all, Joanna, we are both women. We're both women, and we certainly have been in positions in our careers where maybe we've been the only person of our gender, maybe in a group or in a meeting, or maybe in that position. And that's what's happened to Alice. So when we're thinking about this, the first thing is, and this may be controversial. Many of the things, every time I go to say something, I want to say, but then I think you've already gone out there for years saying all kind of things, right? So, but I'm going to, Joanna, I just don't think I just don't think we should focus on gender as an obstacle. I just don't. I mean, I'm going to put it out there.
I totally agree. I think that, although she mentions tears, men get frustrated too. They just get louder typically. They don't necessarily cry, but they lose their control too sometimes.
Joanna, the thing that we have focused on in our business and the things that we do to try to help people, we've always tried to distill things down to their sort of most simple and discrete parts. And the core is that, we're all humans. We all experience stress, frustration, and that's what Alice says. Alice was frustrated and wanted to scream. Well, that happens to everybody. That happens to everybody, no matter our gender, no matter our age. Whether we're a toddler or, we're 90 years old. I mean, we all have those days. So the question is, one, how do we take a situation like that and move toward a changing dynamic so that we're not going to be at the mercy of these emotions and at risk for behaving in a way that could jeopardize our career? Joanna, one of the things that we always talk to people about, whether it's a corporation that we're helping going on site to provide solutions for them, or an event that we're going to be providing a keynote or one of our own seminars, we want people to understand that this is about you. This is about your career, your profession, your reputation. And at a very basic level, this is about your dreams and the goals for yourself and your family and loved ones. So we can't let some situation that's external to us at work jeopardize our ability to earn a living, to be successful, and then outside of life, outside of our professional life, we're not going to jeopardize someone else stepping in and taking away our ability to live in a nice home and to provide for our loved ones. And I want Alice, please, Alice, if you're listening, and hopefully, certainly you are, certainly when community members contribute to the show, we always reach out to them and invite them if they can to either be part of the show, or certainly we give them a token of appreciation for contributing. But Alice, you have got to rethink about this. It's not about that other person or even those other people. This is about you. And Alice, you have earned your job. You have earned your title. And you have the right to go into that business and to that organization and be proud of yourself. And Joanna, I think when we step back and we think about this, sometimes the feedback we might get is, well, that sounds selfish. That might sound selfish. It might be too much of a focus on my individual goals. But as you know, Joanna, we want people to understand these situations that get us on the verge of tears, they're always about power. They're about power.
Absolutely.
And what other people are trying to do to Alice is to take her power away from her. And that's sobering. And I know in my own career, I remember years ago I was, and I was practicing law full time and had my law office there in Texas, and I went to court and I was the only female attorney, and I had it happened to be a male, as Alice was sharing, a situation, and he just was brutal. I mean, Joanna, this gentleman, the look on his face, from the minute, we walked into the hearing, he just had a look on his face that he couldn't tolerate me, and he was trying to intimidate me. And then as we progressed and we got to the part where we both had to, speak up, he was using every bit of his body language. I mean, he stood up, and this guy, Joanna and I are both a little, vertically challenged at times. We're great people, but we're just not super tall. And this guy stood up, and Joanna, he must have been, 6'3", 6'4". And me with, at my best, I'm maybe 5'5". Without heels, I'm 5'3", 5'3.5". Well, I like the 5'3.5". I like the half. It makes me sound taller.
Yeah, I take that half every time.
But Joanna, when he
we
stood
have
up,
and presence. That's what's important.
but it was about power, and I saw what he was doing. He used his physical being. He stood up very, he stands up so that everyone can see he's so much larger than I am. That means he's more imposing than I am. And the stereotypes that come with being a larger stature are that you have, more strength, that you have more power in that room just because you're physically a larger person. So just like Alice, I've been in a situation where someone has gotten me to the point where I inside just felt like I'm going to lose it. I'm going to scream or I'm going to cry. But I used the only tool that you and I have at work, and it's the only tool that Alice really has. Because when we look at our alternatives, alternative one, we go with our emotion, right? Alternative one, you just say, I feel like I'm gonna scream, and you know what? Gosh, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let it out, right? I'm just going to tell all these people what I think of them. If we were to follow that emotion, if we went with our emotion, Joanna, what's the consequence when we yell at people at work, when we scream at people? What's the consequence?
You lose every time. We
lose. I hope everybody heard what Joanna just said. You lose every time. You lose every time. And we are always trying to help people be proactive and powerful. So we are not going to scream and go with that emotion because it makes us look out of control, because guess what? We are. And we're not going to cry because, and Joanna, you mentioned this at the beginning, men and women of any age that are in the workforce, I just cannot think of a situation. There's always maybe a rare exception where maybe, the nature of the work is such, maybe someone, is a surgeon and they're in the hospital and they've lost a patient. Maybe in that type of situation, you certainly can understand someone crying just because they put so much into it. But in most of our situations that are not life and death, so we're not in a life and death professional situation, and Alice, I don't think she is. She didn't share that with us. Then crying is not going to help because, as you said, Joanna, you lose. Because now, what do people think of us, men or women, any age, when we start crying at work? What do people think of us? And it's not a life or death situation, so let's just be clear. I'm not talking about, I don't want us to get community members to write in and say, but, what about the time I was at work and, when someone had been in an injury in an accident or someone had passed away. We're not talking about that. Of course, any human reaction in that rare situation would be to be empathetic and to be emotional. But in the regular meeting, regular situation, when we cry, Joanna, what do people think of us when we cry at work?
They see you as completely out of control, not professional, and immature in most cases. And it is a very awkward moment for anyone in the room at that point. When someone loses it like that, everyone is taken aback. No one knows what to do or what to say to alleviate the situation, and typically the whole meeting comes to a crashing halt, and then nothing gets accomplished.
Joanna, I've had and I want all of our community members to understand, Joanna's been part of our team here at Courtney Anderson Enterprises, LLC, for now, this is our second year. It's done an amazing job. And so Joanna's been behind the scenes working with a lot of our corporate clients and a lot of the keynotes and, of course, seminars that we put on. So she's been part of the solutions that we've been providing to people. But we've worked on client solution situations where people have cried. They've cried in meetings with us, and they've done this. And this again wasn't a life or death. And like Joanna was sharing with everyone in the community, it grinds everything to a halt because everyone's either uncomfortable or worried. What can we do? And it takes away the dialogue and working on work solutions because now we're all overwhelmed about these emotional, outbursts. And what do you do when somebody cries? Whether it's, you just, at first you feel, oh my goodness, what can I do? So, we see this all the time. And like Alice said, I want to have solutions. I said that there's one tool. Just a few minutes ago, Joanna, I was saying that there's one tool, and then I said, well, the reason I'm going to be an advocate for this tool is because option one, we try to use our emotions, and that's not going to work. Right? We go with screaming, we go with crying, we lose, we're out of control. People perceive us as not as someone that could be a leader. So our only tool is to use the brain and to use our ability to delay our reaction. And this is, there's so much science in this area, Joanna, about impulse control. and about the delay and the ability that we have as humans to not just be at the mercy of our primal emotional drives. Like many other, species, they don't have that ability to sort of pause, reflect, and then make different choices based on critical thinking. So when we talk to Alice about what her only tool is, her only tool is to use her own advanced critical thinking and her impulse control. That's all she has. Because in the moment, you just get so caught up in, the situation. You want to scream, you want to cry. And let's be real practical, Joanna. So I'm thinking these thoughts. I'm at work. I'm thinking these thoughts, right? I'm stressed, or I'm about to start crying. I'm about to lose it. I'm thinking these thoughts. Okay, I have got to use some of the techniques that we advocate. They're all sort of part of that area of control, relaxation, meditation techniques. You've got to take a mental pause. Now, you may not be able to stop the meeting to do this. Sometimes we've had dialogue where people in the community say, well, let me just leave the room, right? I feel like I'm about to lose it. I'm going to excuse myself, go to the restroom, and then I'll put water on my face. I'll, walk around a little bit. I'll literally cool off, right? And then I'll go back.
Right.
Well, if you can do that.
Your nose and freeze the entire room either.
Right. And we advocate that. So, option one, if you can, if it's time for a break, or if there certainly is a time for a recess, then do that. Step outside, get some fresh air, just sort of shake it off. And that's great. But you can't always do that. Like you said, you can't twitch your nose all the time like, Bewitched, right? And, stop everything. So if you can't stop everything, you need to do it in your mind. You have got to go to that place where you rethink about, as we talked about at the beginning of the show, this is about you, your goals, your dreams, your aspirations, your loved ones. That's why you're there. I always, when we do corporate training and seminars, and sometimes in our keynote events, we ask our attendees, don't we? Joanna, we ask them, why are you here? Why are you working at this job? Why are you part of this professional organization? And taking you back for a minute. I do it all the time. I'm sure, Joanna, during the day, you do it sometimes. Why are we here? Why are we doing this? And that makes us stop. Oh, I'm here because I enjoy what I do, because I work with cool people, because I'm good at this, because it's fun, or because maybe it just pays my bills. And that's fine. Maybe it's just a time in my life where all I'm trying to do is, get from A to B, and this job is getting me there, and I'll get my paycheck, and that'll allow me to keep moving forward with my life. So you've got to take that mental break. Alice has to take the mental break, and she's got to ask herself, why am I here? And remember that she made that choice. And that's why when I talk about your dreams and your goals and your life, it's because you made that choice to be there based on some reasoning, and you need to think about that. Now, and you can do this in, 10 seconds in your mind. And the other thing that I do is a trick, and this kind of sounds maybe a little goofy, but so many things I say, Joanna, right? But this works. When I get really emotional and I'm at work, if I start looking at the other person, looking in the eyes of the other person who's making me that way, maybe that person's being dishonest. Maybe they're sitting there and telling people things that aren't true, or trying to take credit for my idea. What I do is I look away. Now, you don't avert your eyes all the way to the other side of the room. What you do is you just pick a spot. So sort of it could be off to the corner, but you're not looking into the eyes or the face of the person. You're looking right above their head, okay? And you're looking right over their shoulder. So they won't be able to tell that you've moved your gaze a little bit, because to them it'll look like you're still looking at them, okay? Which is what you want, because that's respectful, right? But what you've done is you're not looking at their face. You're looking at that spot above on the wall. You're looking at that spot over their shoulder. And what I do is by me just a few millimeters, not even that much, moving my gaze over just a little bit. Now I'm not looking at them, so what it does is it de-escalates. It de-escalates. And so what I do is when I'm looking at that, a bit on the wall behind them, right, I can start to think through, why am I here? Okay, what is it about this work I enjoy? Okay, am I going to let that other person take my power away from me? And this is another one of those things that it works. And it's just trying to remove us from that high intensity moment where we feel like we're about to lose control, and to give us that pause and to give us that space. It's kind of replicating what we'd get if we could walk out, outside and get some fresh air, or if we could go to excuse ourselves to the restroom and get some fresh air, but we're just doing it while we're standing there. Now, everybody else looking at us thinks we're just still looking at that person. They can't tell that I've just a little bit moved my gaze, and they can't tell that in my mind I'm just walking through these steps. Why am I here? how does this profession or this job benefit me? And doing some sort of calculation. It's a very kind of crude, calculation, but does the good outweigh the bad? And if you, in that moment, you think, you know what? No, it doesn't. The bad way outweighs the good. Then what that is that's a to-do item. That's an action item that as soon as we're out of the situation, maybe later that evening or when we're off work, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to have a talk with myself. And I'm going to put it down and I'm going to list all of the attributes and the positives, and I'm going to list all these things that drive me crazy, and I'm going to be honest with myself. And if my list is showing me that my negative is outweighing my positive, then that is a recipe for me to take the next step to transition. And, Joanna, we have so many different solutions that we're working on and so many different programs that we're putting together because we get so many questions. Okay, well, all right, if I go through this process and I get an answer, right, how then do I transition? And the transition could be to maybe just a different position, maybe a different department, maybe just a different schedule, or maybe a different job. We don't know yet. We don't know, but we know that if your negatives outweigh your positives, that is telling you it's action time. But if you sit down later that evening after you're out of the situation and you've had a little bit of time to decompress and you put it down on your list and you think about, today was really tough. Today kind of not awesome, okay? But when you look at the big picture, if your positives outweigh your negatives, then what it's telling you is, for right now, this is meeting my needs, and I've just got to be, and Joanna, here comes our word, it's part of what we do, we're pragmatic, right? And, sometimes we just have to be very honest with ourselves. Life is hard. It is. There are some people we work with who aren't nice. And sometimes these people say and do things, and we get in positions where we are stressed. And like Alice, we want to scream or cry. But that will happen in any work, anywhere in the world. I mean, it's going to happen. It shouldn't happen every day. It shouldn't happen, and that's why you're going to sit back when you're in a better place and make your overall list and think about your overall environment. But, Joanna, do you think that we've been able to work through some tools and to work through some suggestions for solution steps that Alice can take?
Yes, and I want to point out that's why it's called work. It's not fun sometimes. And sometimes you really have to put that extra effort in to make it happen. And if your positives do outweigh your negatives, then you got to figure out a way.
One of the things that I just love about life is that we do have so many fantastic options, but we also have to be realistic. And, one of the things that's a hallmark of our firm and of our practice and what we do is we're pragmatic. And what that means is we're not going to give solutions that are sort of based in fantasy or, if you won the lottery tomorrow, then you could do this. Well, yeah, of course, that would be awesome, but the odds of you winning the lottery are very low, right? So we want to have other steps that are more realistic. And the goal isn't, like you said, it's not necessarily, I can't think of anything. You name an Olympic gold medalist or somebody that's really famous or very successful business person, everybody has bad days. We all have them. Everybody has bad meetings, So I want Alice to know, just like Alice feels like that, you and I, we feel like that. So many people in our community feel like that. So that's step one. But again, it's a matter of degree. Do we feel like that every day? Well, no. We want to make sure that what we do in our firm and in our events and so much with this show and our TV version of this show is we want people to understand, are you sort of in the norm? Is this sort of, okay, or can we provide a sounding board for someone to realize, Joanna, that they may be in a situation that might be so far removed from norm, it may almost be dangerous. So if Alice said that, every day, all day, she feels like she's going to scream and cry, then we'd have a totally different situation.
Right.
But I think
that would clearly be a con outweighing the pro, for sure.
Yeah. But, but we've seen that. And Joanna, I know we have some upcoming shows and some upcoming programs that we're providing for people because, we've seen it. We've seen it where someone starts describing to us a challenge, and that's what we're here for, solutions. And they're describing it, and initially they'll say something to us like, it's not that, it's not that bad or it's not that big of a deal. And then we're thinking, well, all right, well, let us know. And then they give us the details. And I know you and I, You and I have sat and looked at each other or been on a call or been on a client site, and we've felt, I know at the same time, we've felt this is almost dangerous. This is so extreme. But the person doesn't realize it because they've been in that for so long. And that's what we do. We provide this context. For 12 years I've been around the world as a workplace relationship expert. And what I've been trying to do, and I know Joanna sometimes is jealous that she's missed some of these when I was on the road, 300 days a year, and she missed some of those days, right? Some of that travel schedule. But what talk about balance, right? But one of the things that I've had the privilege of is going to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of places around the world. And not everybody's been able to do that, to all different sizes of organizations and all different types of industries and, on 5 continents. And so I've been able to see a different context and a comparative analysis of kind of what's a norm, what's an aberration, and what's an action item. And so what we try to do is we try to prevent everybody from having to go out necessarily around the world, but we bring that to them. And that's what the beauty of this show is and what we do. We're able to help people understand, here's some sort of workplace relationship solutions that let's deploy. But sometimes people bring us questions, and I want to thank you again, Alice, because this was great. But it didn't show us something that's so, sometimes, Joanna, they're scary, right? Sometimes we get community feedback. And I know when we're talking about topics and looking on what we're going to do for the next show, and I just think, oh my gosh, that's horrible. We need to really help that person. So that it's just so far out there. Maybe an abusive, work situation where there's literal abuse, maybe, violence or something, or someone has gone, too far. And that's when we go into a lot of our protections and making sure people understand what their rights are. But I want everyone that's in our community, one, to know how much you're appreciated. As Joanna said, it's work. We focus so much on professional goals and entrepreneurship and business, because that's what we are, and that's our area of expertise. But it's also life. And it shouldn't be awful all the time, right? There should be a whole bunch of good times in there. And when we sit down and we do that personal inventory and we look at what's awesome and what's awful and do the negatives outweigh the positives, we need to be realistic. But one of the things that I want to continue to encourage people, feel comfortable to let us know all different types of workplace issues, because we've pretty much either seen it all or been there, or we've got some, in a lot of these areas, there's a lot of good research and a lot of great management theory that we can bring to the solutions. But one thing I want people in the community to know, because Joanna, you've joined us and you're the now co-hosting, you've added to the many things that you do and the number of hats that you wear. I work so hard and you work so hard, and we want to have fun. And one of the things we want our community members to remember, that when we talk about, and it's one of our themes, it's one of our biggest programs, it's one of our most popular programs around the world, when we talk about practicing the joyful art of business, we mean it. We mean it. Because it's not easy and it's not always fun. But on the holistic assessment, of what people are doing, more often than not, it should be joyful, and it is an art. And you should really get emotionally and creatively nurtured from what you do. And Joanna, is there anything that you want to do to kind of give our community members just a little bit of an insight into, the joyful art of business, or do you just at this point kind of want to tell them to make sure they tune in for our next show and make sure they come to the website and give us some show ideas?
I definitely want to encourage everyone to come into our website and give us some thoughts and ideas on what you'd like us to be talking about, because it is a vast array of information available, and it is a joyful art. And I really do enjoy that about working with you, Courtney. It's always a pleasure and always fun. And, even though there's stress, there are definitive ways of handling it, and that's what makes it important that you reach out to these people and let them know that there is ways to deal with everything.
Thank you, Joanna. We're out of time. We will be here next time. Same channel, same place. Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care.